I remember a young man called Colin Peckham. He is now about 80 years old, but what a lovely man. What a wonderful man. One of the few people I've known in my life that he didn't bury one opportunity on one occasion in his entire life that he could have done anything for God. He did it with all his heart, and what he's done for God in this world. I'm a young man. But do you know how God got hold of him? He was on his knees in a prayer meeting, and he was groaning to God, just saved, young but full of fire, and he was groaning all these godly missionaries, and he was crying out as a young preacher what everybody else was praying. As a young Christian, he was crying out, "Oh God, send forth laborers into the field. Oh God, the harvest is wide plentiful, but the laborers are few. Souls are dying, God." And he was groaning, only thou can send and lay hold of young people, God. Lay hold of young lives. Get people who are willing to put their lives on the altar and send. And while he was praying, a man began to laugh. Now, have you ever been in a prayer meeting when someone laughs at someone praying? I mean, that's obnoxious. That's shocking. But this was one of the godliest men Africa ever knew. There's books written on his life. He died shortly after that. But what he did for God while he lived just shook parts of Africa. But this man was in the prayer meeting, and he began to laugh. But he didn't just giggle. He roared with laughter. He laughed so loud at this young man's praying earnestly, crying out for God to send out laborers, the desperate need of people to give their lives and go out and win the perishing souls on the mission field, that they stopped the prayer meeting. Of course, this young fellow was blood red and looking at who it was. Everybody knew who it was, laughing and roared. So he got up, and everybody got up. The prayer meeting was finished with all the laughter of this man. And everybody was shocked. But he walked up, still laughing, and he put his hand on this young man's shoulder, and he says, "Brother, you are going to have to answer your own prayer. You are going to have to be the answer of what you've just prayed." And he walked out. And Colin Peckham, from that moment, couldn't recover. God wanted his life. He thought of others. He was crying in earnestness for others. Yes, others, but not me. There was not a consideration that he could be meaningful for God, that he could be used by God, and yet he was earnest until somebody was so shaken that he didn't realize he had no right to pray like that when he was young on the altar and all that. That man gave up everything within moments of life because of the way that godly man had laughed in that meeting and said those words to him.